James Tilford Jones. I was born in Harrison, Arkansas, and lived there a month, and we moved to Texas. And so I was raised and educated in Texas. And at the time the Korean War broke out, I was stationed at Fort Ord, California. They had called my college class to active duty in 1948 when we graduated. And so in 1950, when the war broke out, I had 3 days to get my car home and get back out and catch an airplane to South Korea.
Oh. When you were born?
Born Harrison, Arkansas.
When?
Oh, May the 27th, 1927.
27, May what?
27, 1927. May 27, 27.
Right. So, you were in college when the Korean War broke up?
No, I was already out of college.
Out of college?
I had graduated in 1948.
48. What did you study?
I was major in biology and a minor in chemistry.
Wow. So what did you want it to be at the time after the graduation?
Well, I was thinking about maybe becoming a doctor.
Doctor.
Medical doctor. Yeah.
Medical doctor.
But things were pretty rough then. So anyway, but see, when you graduated from Texas A&M at that time, you received, you took military science for 4 years. And so therefore, when you graduated as a second lieutenant in the Army.
Oh, it's like a ROTC program?
Yes, that's exactly what it is.
So you were in ROTC program in Texas A&M, right?
Right.
Mm.
And so when we graduated, my entire class got called to active duty.
Right.
And I was sent to Fort Ord, California.
Mm-hmm.
And there I was platoon leader for a while, and then I was on the regimental instructor class, or instructor group, and then I was on the post instructor group. Mm-hmm. And I was teaching swimming and first aid and field sanitation. And so I had the post swimming pool as part of my responsibility.
That's great.
But then when the war broke out in Korea, then they gave me 3 days to get my stuff home and then to get back, and they put us on a Pan American Airways airplane and flew us to Japan. And at Japan, we went through Camp Drake and received our supplies. And then they put us on a train to Osaka and put us on a boat in Osaka. And we went at night and landed in Busan.
So when do you remember when you left the United States for
August
Japan?
of 1950.
August of 19...
Or the 1st of September of 1950. The North Korean soldiers assassinated the Korean civilians in Daejeon.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And we had to do mass burials. Mm. And we have a series of pictures on that.
So what was your rank?
At that time, first lieutenant.
First lieutenant. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So how many soldiers you were in charge?
Well, I had a platoon, which is supposed to be about 39 men. Mm-hmm. And usually it was closer to 29 to 30 men.
Were you aware of Korea before you left for Korea?
No.
You didn't know where Korea was?
I had no earthly idea.
But you were highly educated. You graduated Texas A&M, one of the best college, university, and you didn't know where Korea was? No. So not many of your colleagues neither know where Korea was and so on, right?
I would doubt it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. How did you feel about to be assigned to the country where you've never been and you don't have any idea about what this Korea was?
Well, I knew what we were trying to do. And
What was that?
we were trying to move the North Koreans back up north and get them out of South Korea. And then our objective, I thought, was to proceed on up to the Yalu and make one country out of Korea.
Mm-hmm. So you were highly motivated about that?
Well, we were, I'd say, it's kind of when we got overrun in the Yalu,
Mm-hmm.
then all I had on my back was a pair of what we call long johns, you call thermals nowadays, and a pair of fatigue pants and a fatigue shirt and a pile jacket and a field jacket. And here it is, minus 20, minus 30 degrees. And you're living in that, and you go 2 and 3 and 4 days with no food because your kitchen didn't know where you were. And
But you had a C ration.
we didn't have them. But when we could get them, we loved them. I'll give you a good example. One of my men, when we were pulling, I call it a strategic withdrawal. Some people said, you retreated. I said, no, we didn't retreat. We had a strategic withdrawal.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my men one day found a half a can of C ration beans and franks.
Mm-hmm.
And it was frozen naturally.
Right.
And so I told him at the time, I said, well, you'll never eat those. And he said, oh yes, I'm going to build a fire and I'm going to have them I'm going to enjoy them. I said, you'll never eat them. And sure enough, he sold a little half a can of beans and franks for $550. And people say, oh my Lord, that's a lot of money. And I'm saying, no, you got to think about where you were and what you were doing. You hadn't had food for 2 or 3 days. You may not be alive tomorrow night. Money means nothing.
So there was no supply for C rations for a while?
No.
No.
Well, we would get them every once in a while. Another example is it had been, at least 3 days we hadn't had any food. And
How did you survive?
well, I found out that if I go in the rice field and shred rice into my canteen cup and build a fire, I can pop it just like popcorn.
So you eat that?
Oh yeah,
Mm.
that's great. Well anyway, so our kitchen found us and we said, oh boy, we're gonna have some hot food. And sure enough, it had been 2 days of them trying to find us. And so when they opened, instead of hot pork and gravy, it was frozen solid. So we took our bayonets and chopped it out. And
You find the rice paddy and rice at November in North Korea?
yeah, we found some.
Wow.
Now it was scarce, but that's why we couldn't depend on it, you know.
Right.
You never knew what you might. And generally we spent more time out without than we did with.
Right, right.
The only thing I could figure was, I tried to figure it out. And the only thing I could figure was maybe between the armies going back and forth, they didn't have a chance to harvest it or something, I don't know.
Right, maybe, yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. So from Daejeon you went to Seoul, right? Did you?
From Daejeon, no, we went around, so we went up by Incheon and then on up towards the Yalu, all along the west coast there.
Oh, West Coast. So do you remember any severe battle in that journey up to the Yalu?
Well, we had a few very small battles.
Otherwise it was smooth?
well, it wasn't difficult. For our division, I was a lead platoon in Pyongyang, and I didn't fire a shot going through Pyongyang.
When you entered Pyongyang, Pyongyang was already occupied by the Allied forces, right?
Yeah, but it was supposed to have been, yeah.
Yeah.
But they said that it wasn't, but we had no opposition, so it had to have been. Somebody had to precede us, but then the night before we got overrun, I couldn't talk to my company commander on my radio. And they said, well, these are low frequency radios. Those people are probably in Beijing. Well, they weren't. They were just on the other side of the hill.
You mean Chinese?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you didn't recognize any kind of symptoms that the Chinese were there? You didn't know anything?
Nobody, no, because we had just gone down we had been dug in, and we went down and had breakfast. Well, I was making sure my men had their ammo and making sure that we were defending and making sure that none of the Chinese got through. And see, then we started our withdrawal then, and we made. We'd go so far every day, and then we'd dig in, because don't forget, when they attacked us, when they hit us at the Yalu, they were already 31 miles behind us, because MacArthur.
Yeah, but you were not attacked behind.
Huh?
You were not attacked from behind, right?
Well, we had to fight our way through. We had to fight our way through some of them at one time. Yeah.
You were attacked from behind.
And, well, primarily from the front.
Mm-hmm.
But then we I don't know how to describe it. How do I describe it? We would primarily we would retreat all day, and then we would dig in, and we'd make a big show of digging in. And then we would, as soon as night fell, we would start again, and we would walk further south. We wanted them to think that we were going to defend there, and maybe we would, maybe we wouldn't. But you always knew when they were coming. You could smell the garlic. And then they would start blowing their little horns and going into the attack. See, the first two waves, a lot of times would not have anything but sticks and stones. They wanted you to use all your ammunition on those, and then they would come. The third wave normally would be the first wave that had armament. They had rifles and so forth.
So you killed so many Chinese soldiers, right?
Well, we tried to.
Yeah. How many men did you lose at the time?
Well, I was very fortunate. I only lost maybe one or two the entire time. We must have had probably 10 or 15 firefights coming back south, and I didn't lose any. Except we did lose our company commander, but I didn't lose, but I think maybe 2 men. But then when we stopped at Suwon, and then Ridgeway came, and then we started back up north of Suwon. Oh, it wasn't too far north of Suwon that I lost most of my men on one battle. And then we...
What battle was that?
Well, we had taken this hill, and there was a ridge coming off of this hill to the next hill.
Yeah, where?
It's just, I don't know how far, just north of Suwon. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And that they wouldn't let us take this other hill off of this ridge because they said that was the Turks to take. And the Turkish guys came up and they went out, they got there about noon. We were waiting on them, and finally they got there, and they went out and they shot a bunch of ammo, and then they came back, and he said, well, we come back tomorrow. There's too many. And I said, no. He said, we come back tomorrow. So that night, I lost, wounded and killed close to half my men, I guess. That night I called our own artillery in on my position, because that's the only way I could get the Chinese off of me. There were, well, we counted 12, 13 dead inside my little perimeter of my men. And so I had to pull back and make a smaller perimeter. And that's when I asked the artillery, I told the artillery forward observer, I said, well, you remember where my left flank was tonight? And he said, yes. And I said, well, give me battery of 5 or 6 rounds. And he said, well, it'll kill every one of you. And I said, well, if you don't, the Chinese will. I said, you just tell me when it's on the way and I'll get my men down. And that's the way we finally got them off of us, is bringing our own artillery in on us.
So after that, the battle north of Suwon, what did you do?
Well, we proceeded on back up north again.
Right.
And that Picture in Life magazine was just north of Suwon. It was north of that was before our bad battle. And so then we moved on up, back up north. And then we had to wait in Seoul to let the ROK come and retake Seoul. And then we went on north of Seoul and started on up. And then was one day there that, well, it was March the 29th to be exact, 1951.
March 29th?
Yeah, I was trying to take a hill, and I told the people that brought our food, I said, you don't need to bring food to me tonight because I'm not going to be here. The Lord already told me I'm not going to be here. And so when I started into the attack, when I was crossing this riverbed, a machine gun cut my binoculars and my first aid pouch and my ammo off of my belt. And I thought, well, this is it, you know. And I felt and I looked and I said, no, I didn't, there was no blood, so I guess I was wrong. And so then we tried to take this hill, and I tried on the left side, and they had me in crossfire machine gun. I tried the right side, and it was a crossfire machine gun. So then I said, okay, the only thing I can do is go up this finger. Well, up that finger of the hill, what else would you call it? I see you don't understand what I call a finger of a hill. In other words, where the hill kind of comes down. Mm-hmm. And there was you could see there was a foxhole up there. And about what they were doing, they could throw 4 hand grenades at a time. And so I would wait till they go off, and then we'd move on up some more. And I kept asking. I had a tank platoon in support, and I had a quad 50, what they call armored infantry. They were half tracks with 4 50 caliber machine guns on them. And I kept telling them, hit that, and they would hit it dead on with their tank fire. And then we'd start up again, and here would come the grenades again. And so right before we got to there, they threw 4 hand grenades, and I had my men get down. and 3 of them went off, and then the other one gave off a green puff of smoke. So I thought it was a duck. And instead, when I started to get up, it went off my face. And the company commander couldn't understand me, and I couldn't understand why he couldn't understand me on my radio. And then I looked down, and my mouthpiece was full of blood, so I threw my radio to my radio man and said, "Tell the old man we're almost there. We're going to take it."
You weren't wounded by the grenade?
Yeah, it went off in my face.
But
And that's why all the blood. That's why all the blood was in my radio.
So you were wounded or not?
Yes.
You're wounded, right?
Yeah.
Ah, what? Where?
In my face.
Face.
Yeah, the shrapnel went through, well, all kinds of places here, and it came to rest on top of my teeth.
Whoa.
But anyway, so.
So you were back to the hospital?
Yeah, after I finally got to, we finally took the hill, and the company commander had already ordered me off the hill 3 times, and so anyway, I got down. Well, then when I got down, well, I found out that our battalion aid station had been hit with mortar fire, and so they threw me on the back of a Jeep and took me back down to Seoul, and where they put me on a train and down to Busan, and we got to Busan about 2 o'clock in the morning, I guess. And then they put me on a hospital ship. And on the hospital ship, they just knocked the bone out of my face and took an electromagnet and got all the shrapnel out and sewed me up and marked me duty. So that's when I went back up, and when I got back up, the battalion commander asked me to be his assistant S3, and I said, great. And then that night we got overrun again.
Where?
It was in Changori, is the name of the place. It's North Korea. And then we retreated back to Seoul. And actually our battalion headquarters was in an orphanage there on the north side of Seoul. And then we went back up again. And
so how long did you actually off of the frontline service because of the wounds?
Well, the Navy, after a week, because it took them 3 days to operate on me, they marked me duty on after a week, and then I went back to the Army, and they told me to, because I still had all the stitches in my head, they told me to go back, go up and go and get on the bed, and then about 3 or 4 days, a week later, then they sent me back up. So I was gone about 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Did you get any medal for that wound?
Well, actually, I got the Purple Heart, and then for that action
Could you show to the camera?
Okay. I got the Purple Heart at that time, of course, and then
which one is Purple Heart?
Huh?
Which one is Purple Heart?
This one.
Right.
And then I also got a Silver Star for taking the hill. And back when I lost half of my platoon with the Chinese back outside of Suwon's, when I got the Bronze Star. So.
What was the most difficult time during that service?
Oh, I'd say our most difficult time was coming back from the yellow, because my boots had holes in them, and we couldn't get a replacement. And so I would change my socks, but then about 10 minutes later, snow had packed in there. And so that's why I have frozen toast today. But that was, I'd say, our most difficult time, because we didn't have food. We were walking miles every day. We were freezing to death. we didn't have any clothes to keep us warm, and so I would say that's the most difficult time.
So when did you actually finish your service in Korea?
November of '51.
November 51.
That's when I came home.
What people say to you when you were back home?
Nobody missed me, I guess.
Had you written to your family?
Oh yes.
Mm.
Yeah, I wrote to them regularly, and I had friends. I don't know how they learned of it, but they found out that I had been injured, and a couple of them came and visited me on a hospital ship and wrote letters to my parents that I was okay.
You mean Koreans wrote?
No, American soldiers.
I see.
That were stationed in Busan.
Mm.
And so, because that's where the hospital ship was.
Right.
And so they wrote my parents, and actually my parents got the letter from them before they got the telegram from the War Department that I'd been hit.
Mm.
The War Department, or Department of Defense, would wire your parents that you were injured and so forth. There were times when we would dig in, like the first night, after they had overrun us that day. The first night we dug in, and that's when I said my machine gun couldn't.
But after dug in, you have to do retreat again, right?
And then we would dig in, and then you would let them. They would come. You would try to get them off your back, and then the next day you pull back, and the next day you pull back. So.
But Chinese used to engage in an attack during the night, right?
Oh yeah, but like I said, you knew it because you could smell the garlic. You knew before they blew their little horns, you already knew they were there.
Mm-hmm.
And you didn't have to worry. I mean, you didn't have to wonder. You knew when it was coming.
Were you scared?
Didn't have time to be.
Uh-huh.
You really didn't have time to. All you're thinking about is trying to get them off of you, you know. And the North Koreans and the Chinese fought very differently.
How?
The North Koreans, if they got you, they would surround you, totally surround you, to where you could try to find the weak spot. The Chinese would leave one opening. And I found out why, because one of them told me, well,
one of whom?
Chinese. He said, if we leave you one way out, you won't fight as hard. And I never thought of it that way.
Did that really happen?
Oh yeah, yeah.
So they always leave one way out open?
Always. You always had one way out. Now, they had it in crossfire and borders, but you could get out. The best way I remember, the night I got back from the hospital and they overran us, and they were already 9 miles behind us then, and I was given the task of getting all of our equipment out. And as we were going down this valley, on the hills on either side, the Chinese were yelling down, "No rotation, GI, no rotation." And although one mortar round came pretty close and actually got the heel of my sergeant, and he said, "Well, why didn't you tell me that mortar was coming?" I said, "When a mortar round comes in, you ain't got time to tell anyone. You've got to move." And so that was about the way it was worked. Then I retired from the Army in 1955, 54, I'm sorry. And then I went into industry, and I was quality assurance or quality control, or however you want to say it, starting with Pillsbury. So I was in quality control for the food industry, and I was responsible for the quality in my last job that I had for 19 years. Now I'm in what they call a Tell-America program, and we go to the various high schools and try to tell these young folks that, what is the reason for the Korean War. Why did we even fight it? Why did we even get over there and get involved? And even the teachers don't know. All the schools that we've approached
In Texas, right?
have welcomed us with open arms, and the kids have been fantastic. We have really, well, like one school the other day, their teacher came with a collage of, and thanking us for coming and talking to them and explaining it to them. They were very, like I said, all we've had is just rave reviews from every school we've gone to.
Wow.
We have not had one bad thing from any school.
You are blessed. In New York State, there are many schools that they are hesitant to invite Korean War veterans or any other war veterans, and they're hesitant to talk about those issues in the classroom.
Oh. Well, of course, see, the history books, they're in Texas. At most, they have a paragraph about that big on the Korean War.
Wow.
If they have anything. A lot of them have nothing. And the teachers are saying, "Hey, give us any information you can." And so we give them these little books that we get, and we give them everything that we can give them. And the teacher, they're more, at least as interested as the children.
What is the main goal of Tell America program?
We want people to understand why we went to Korea.
Mm-hmm.
And want them to understand, really, we stopped communism in Asia. Because we know now, after finding some Stalin papers and Mao papers, that they wanted to conquer Korea, and their next step was Japan. I wish there's some way that we could get the textbook manufacturers,
Mm-hmm.
the people that make the textbooks, to know and understand, at least give us a half a page, or ideally a couple of pages. But the people who are writing the textbooks don't want to hear about it. And yet they'll give 2 pages to some guy like this one that just shot everybody the other night. They'll give 2 pages to a fellow like that.
Have you contacted them?
No, we haven't. And we don't know, I guess, how to go about doing all that.
That's a very good point. I wanna contact them, and I wonder why they are not writing about the
Yeah.
Korean War, because the Korean War was the signal of the Cold War
Right.
that divided the whole country into two poles. One pole under the Soviet Union and the other under the United States.
That's correct.
It's one of the most important war in 20th century. So that's a very excellent point, that we need to contact these people who's writing history without knowing the importance of the Korean War.
They think, well, there was one paragraph in one of the history books. It says it was of no consequence, a war of no consequence that shouldn't have been fought. I guess my biggest pleasure was my revisit to Korea,
When did you do?
2007, I believe it was.
Mm-hmm.
Either 6 or 7. And to see those kids. I'm getting bad now. But to see those kids and enjoying life and laughing, and I love to see them, because everywhere we went and I saw the young kids. And
Did you see all, where did you go in Korea?
well, they of course they took us to the outdoor museum, and there I saw a bunch of them, and I've got pictures of them. And I saw a group in the War Museum, and I got to talk to them a little bit. And they didn't know some of the things. And I guess what I was so disappointed in the War Museum, my division was the 2nd division into Korea at the start of the war. And they don't even have our flag, our division flag, in the museum.
That's what we have to do. We have to scold historians and...
Well, I did, because the curator for the War Museum wanted these pictures, and he asked, well, I made some copies and took them, and I said, will you be interested in these? And he said, yeah, but I want the originals. And so I came back and made copies and sent him the originals. So the War Museum has the originals, but I told him, I said, why don't we have the 25th Division? Oh, well, that was a secondary division that came later. I said, you need to read your history. I said, we were the 2nd. In fact, the 24th Division, after they lost their general, the 25th Division commander took over the 24th and combined the 24th and 25th. And I'm surprised that curator to the museum didn't know that. I just want to say this too. The South Koreans, Republic of Korea, has done more for the USGI than any country in the world. And I have never received so much respect and everything from anybody. Be your Koreans in the U.S. or the Koreans in Korea, walking down the street, and they thank you. And I don't think you'll find that in any other country.